Hello, Horror Fanatics. I'm Frank.
And I'm Jen, and we welcome you to our weekly podcast, The Horror.
The Horror. Thank you for joining us as we dive deep into all things horror, supernatural, scary, and downright creepy.
If you like what you hear, you can rate, review, subscribe, or follow to add us to your regular rotation of podcasts.
You can also submit any ideas, comments, and suggestions to our email address at oth@seriouslydecent.com. And you can go to our website at ohthehorrorpodcast.com. Connect to the whole back catalog, connect to our YouTube channel, like us while you're on YouTube.
Yeah.
Connect to your favorite podcast platform through that website. And you can also get into the Facebook group. Well, you get notifications when new episodes drop and see all the stuff that Jen's sharing and forwarding and sharing and sharing.
Yeah. Yep. All those things.
Yeah. So here we are, end of March,
Yep.
end of your birthday month,
Yep.
closing it out.
Yep.
It's been a fun month,
Yeah.
you know?
I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, a lot of different stuff.
Yeah. A little bit of everything.
Definitely some things I didn't really kind of think about. You kind of put some curveballs at me.
That's my favorite.
The Doomsday Cat Cult was one of them.
Yep.
I didn't see that coming.
No. It's a juicy one.
That's been getting good plays, too.
Well, I mean, it's a juicy one.
You know, well, and it's cats. I think cats have this, like, I don't know, it's weird.
There's a mysticism with cats.
Yeah, and people are just into cats. I'm not, but there are people that just...
There are cat people. Correct.
But only internet. Like,
No,
I'm just saying there's like an internet cat-only group that just like, they're just infatuated with cats, whether it's memes or whatever, you know. It's interesting, but...
Is it?
Yeah. And we had the whole Joan of Arc saga.
How about the pendulum swing from Joan of Arc, the saint, to Jill de Ray,
Yeah.
the first serial killer?
Yeah.
I mean...
Well, I'd say first recorded.
I mean, I don't think we can say he's the first because Elizabeth Bathory was before him.
I think that's something that's like pathologically been around for a long time.
Yeah.
You know.
I think we could safely say Genghis Khan would have been the first.
I don't know.
I don't know.
There's that whole biblical era as well.
Yeah.
Of just
Turns out.
People doing weird things.
Yeah.
But they would call it demonic then.
Correct.
You know.
I
They
mean,
didn't have
I'm
like
not
a clinic name for it. And I'm sorry. I
I'm
think
not
it's
gonna deny,
right because it's evil.
Yeah. I'm not going to deny that there's definitely.
I don't want to soft pad that behavior.
No.
You know,
No,
I don't
no.
want to soften it up or, you know, soften the language of it up or anything like that. You know, it is evil. There's an evil thing going on there.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And, you know, evil finds its home on Oh, the Horror Podcast and the strange and unusual. I'll go all Beetlejuice on that.
Yeah.
We are the strange and unusual.
Yeah.
So this week we take a totally different turn to close this month out. You know, so
This really was Mr. Toad's Wild Ride because we were all over the place.
it's your month.
Time slips. Then we got into Joan of Arc and Jill de Ray, and then the Doomsday Cat Cult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now we're at the Green Children of
Woolpit. Yeah.
So the whole time I've been researching this in my head, because this is a dangerous place I have.
Yes.
I just want to call it Woolpat because of Dukes of Hazzard. So
Well, you could get away with Wolf Pit.
So even when I see Woolpit, my head is like Woolpat.
Okay.
Just the good old boys.
Never do harm.
Been in trouble with the law since the day they were born. Yeah. So, yeah. So here we are, season 5, episode 209, rounding out Jen's birthday month.
Yep.
The Green Children of Woolpit.
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't know anything about this.
Really? You'd never heard of it?
Never heard of it. Never, never even heard it referenced or, never stumbled upon it. And then I had a busy week between work and just stuff with home and the ongoing growth through Lent for me because I've gone right into the deep end of the pool with Lent. And if I'm not doing a specific task, I'm getting my Lent on.
Yeah.
Either through fasting or reading or listening or
whatever.
All three at the same time.
Insert.
So this last night you went to bed and I was like, I'm just going to stay up and start tinkering around with this. And yeah, what a legend.
Yeah.
You know, I would classify this in the legend category.
Who's to say?
Yeah.
Because yes, it's legend. I know it was included in lore, so it's part of folklore.
Mm-hmm.
But by the same token, like there were two completely different people who provided like virtually the same story as to these children. And the reason I bring them up, and we'll get into it at some point, is one of the theories is that they are a product of a time slip.
Yeah, I dove down that wormhole a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's some pretty cool videos on YouTube with it. I watched a handful of them, kind of scrubbed through some others.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a 12th century England kind of story here.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, we're legit. It's the Suffolk village of Woolpit.
Yeah.
12th century. I have two sources, historic-uk.com and allthat'sinteresting.com.
I did All That's Interesting. I did a little bit of the other one you had. And then there was just these various videos that I scrubbed through. I wasn't going to put them all down. Like you were mentioning, you just Google them and they're all over YouTube. There's a lot of them.
There's a ton of videos on YouTube.
And it's pretty neat going through some of them because I know sometimes when we go through all this stuff, this is something that kind of frustrates me with. And I know we would probably hurt ourselves if we did this. I don't know. I'd like to think we do an original spin on things. But I think like AI should, and of course it's a messy thing to have AI do or algorithms because I believe in free speech and I think you should be able to publish any kind of content you want. But my problem is like redundant content. You know, and there's people that'll just like grab ideas of somebody and say, oh, this is attractive. I'll put it on here and get some views too.
Right.
Not saying there's, no passion in some of these. I mean, it takes passion to create this stuff, but I just, it's tough when you're kind of researching for things because you want to find I'm somebody that likes to find different angles on things. And, it can get pretty redundant and frustrating.
Well, sometimes you can't.
Well, but I wanted to bring it up a little bit because that is kind of like, we have listeners that'll come in and say they tune, we have the ones that come in right on Monday morning when we drop these, and then throughout the week, there's, some that are getting listened to it all. And you just hear the episode, but like the amount of research that goes into some of these, some of it's quick, it's easy, it's all laid out and it kind of flows well. But other ones, there's digging and a lot of digging. Yeah. And the thing is, you're just through redundant stuff and like blogs, it drives me nuts because there's times, and I'm sure people have seen this, maybe not, if you're just a consumer of this kind of stuff and don't do the reading, and I know it's different strokes for different folks, but like I'll look at blogs and it's literally verbatim the same text.
Yeah.
The same sentences, the same punctuation, just they copied, paste on there.
Yep.
And I have that drives me crazy because it's just like, okay, you're not even being creative about this. And that's why I like doing the podcast because it's like, it's us.
Yeah.
And we're going through this. And even though we might be taking stuff from other people, we're putting our own little ideas at it and like, what would you do in that situation? And,
right.
And that type of stuff. And that's where the blog sphere, so to speak, and stuff on the internet. And then you got to do all this cross stuff just to make sure that it's legitimate. Because, there's a lot of lying out there. A lot of lying.
Yeah.
And mistruths just to get clicks.
Well, this story is old.
This is an old story. And it had me at hello with that because I love old stories. I really do.
There are at least two historical accounts with children with green skin appearing in this English village of Woolpit. Yeah. Also, in Old English, it's Wolf Pit. in the 12th century.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, there's no definitive answers.
Mm-hmm.
And we're never going to have definitive answers,
No.
which can be frustrating
Well,
in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
So the legend of the Green Children of Woolpit starts during the reign of King Stephen in a rather tumultuous time in England's history called, quote, the Anarchy in the mid-12th century. Woolpit, or as I mentioned, Old English wolf pit, is an ancient village in Suffolk named after, as one might gather from the name, an old pit for catching wolves. Next to this wolf pit, on an otherwise normal day, around 1150, residents of the English village, and I don't mean 1150 as in like AM or PM, I mean 1150 AD.
The year.
Yeah. Made a startling discovery on the edge of town. 2 small children with green skin. Not only did the children look strange, but they also spoke a strange language and seemed perfectly repulsed by most food. So here they are. They're green.
Mm-hmm.
They don't speak English.
Mm-hmm.
They speak another language. Sometimes it's called gibberish. Other times it's actually referred to as a language, that they speak their own language that only they understand. They kind of don't understand the English food.
It's weird, peculiar behavior.
Exactly.
And so just to back up a second, you mentioned the anarchy as this period of time, and it was civil unrest. And the reason it was called the anarchy is that era was characterized by basically what would be like succession crisis.
Yes.
You know, you would have someone come in and then the next person would come in, and it's just this, you know, kind of not really a whole lot of momentum and not somebody kind of like establishing a legacy.
Right.
And then that being like observed through there, it was just the next person would do something, next person would do something different, or there'd be someone who would get killed or whatever. And a product of this succession crisis was this widespread disorder. And that could have contributed to the villagers' heightened sense of intrigue and superstition when confronted with unusual occurrences, period.
Right, yes.
So it goes without saying to kind of bring that up. And then the wolf pit that you were talking about was a pit for trapping wolves.
Yes.
And that was basically the village through here. These wolf pits were designed to protect livestock by capturing wolves. And it was near one of these pits that these green children were reportedly discovered. So just to throw some context in there, because you get into these historical accounts and we just want to jump into it with like the brain we have and the current times we have and the current thought process and culture and all that. And it was just different. You had this whole succession crisis issue where you have a lot of this disorder and you get people that are starting to be superstitious and then this story comes out.
Yeah. So according to writings at the time by Ralph of Coggeshall, the children were subsequently taken to the nearby home of Sir Richard Decane, where he offered them food that they refused repeatedly to eat. And this continued for some days until the children came across some green beans in Richard Decane's garden, which they ate straight out of the ground. It is thought that the children lived with Richard Decane for some years, where he was able to slowly convert them over to normal food. According to the writings of the day, this change in diet led to the children losing their green complexion. The children also slowly learned to speak English, and once fluent, were asked where they had come from and why their skin was once green. They replied with, quote, "We are inhabitants of the land of St. Martin, which is regarded with peculiar veneration in the country which gave us birth." End quote. So the people of the time are ignorant of how they arrived.
It was a boy and a girl, right?
Yes, it's a presumed to be a brother and a sister.
Mm-hmm.
And they themselves were ignorant as to how they got there.
Yeah.
We only remember this, that on a certain day when we were feeding our father's flocks in the fields, we heard a great sound, such as we are now accustomed to hear at St. Edmund's when the bells are chiming. And whilst listening to the sound in admiration, we became, on a sudden, as it were, entranced, and found ourselves among you in the fields where you were reaping. Quote, the sun does not rise upon our countrymen. Our land is little cheered by its beams. We are contented with that twilight which, among you, precedes the sunrise or follows the sunset. Moreover, a certain luminous country is seen, not far distant from ours, and divided from it by a very considerable river. So this quote right here, where they talk about they were feeding their father's flocks in the field and they heard the great sound, that's where many believe the time slip happened.
Yeah.
That was the moment.
When they start hopping into that theory, yeah.
Yeah. That's how they traveled through time and space, if you will.
And
a lot like in the time slip episode, the Boy Scouts, who were going through the village, and then all of a sudden the village was like Middle Ages village.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are we ever going to know? No, but I think the fact that...
Maybe it's a time slip and they're Soylent Green kids.
I don't think so.
No?
The fact that they had the green skin and they were drawn to the green beans, you know how if you eat too much carrots and sweet potatoes, you can turn orange? What if that was a similar...
Is that a thing?
Oh, yeah.
It is? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely turn yourself orange by eating, specifically, if you're just eating carrots and sweet potatoes, orange-colored fruits and vegetables, your skin will... I'm not going to say you're going to look orange like an orange, but there will be an orange tint.
Yeah, you're not going to go all like Violet Beauregard and turn into a carrot. You know.
Yeah, but Violet turned into a blueberry.
Well, no, because she ate the gum.
The blueberry,
you know, yeah. I'm saying if it was carrot cake instead of blueberry pie.
Yeah, I don't know. But yes, you can get definitely that yellowy, that jaundice look to you.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is because, like, when I first started looking at this, I was like, is that some kind of thing of that deal? And that was kind of the weird thing, like the kind of behavior and adaptation that I saw was, or, you know, what I was reading and researching through, you know, they were saying they initially refused all food offered to them, as you mentioned, you know, and they were displaying signs of distress. They would continue to weep and cry. And then it was only when they were presented with freshly picked green beans that they showed interest, and they also consumed them eagerly or whatever.
Yep.
And then over time, they gradually adapted to a broader diet.
Right.
You know.
And that's what diminished their green.
And then, they're saying basically as like their nutrition improved.
Yes.
The green skin tone faded to like this normal complexion.
Richard DeCane not only took the children in, but he also took the children to be baptized in the local church. However, the boy died soon afterwards through an unknown illness. The girl, later known as Agnes, continued to work for Richard DeCane for many years before marrying the Archdeacon of Ely, Richard Barr. According to one report, the pair had at least one child. So a lot of people asked, you know, so who were these kids? Or who are, you know,
yeah, because, you know, the boy became ill and died.
Yep.
And then the girl thrived, learned to speak English, integrated into the local community.
Yep.
And
married, had a kid.
Yeah. You know, so then there's the kind of, how did this story start? Like, what's the origin of all this?
Yeah. So the most likely explanation for the Green Children of Woolpit is that they were the descendants of Flemish immigrants who had been persecuted and possibly killed by King Stephen or perhaps King Henry II. Lost, confused, and without their parents, the children could have ended up at Woolpit speaking only their native tongue of Flemish, perhaps explaining how the villagers thought that they were speaking gibberish. Furthermore, the green tint to the children's skin could be explained by malnourishment or, more specifically, green sickness. And this theory is supported by the fact that their skin reverted to a normal color once Richard DeCane had converted them over to eating, a varied diet. And there are some who side with the more romantic theory that the children arrived from an underground world where the native inhabitants are all green.
Wasn't that recounted by the actual girl herself? Because that was some stories that I heard. Again, this is where like the legend kind of goes in weird things. Because I heard a couple accounts where they said that she recounted the story of their origins and only added to this like enigma that's already wrapped around in all this. And she claimed that she and her brother came from a land called St. Martin's Land.
Right. As I mentioned previously.
A subterranean world where the sun never shone and the light was perpetually like twilight.
Yeah.
And according to her, all the inhabitants of the land had green skin. She described a luminous country visible at a distance, separated from their own by this like substantial river, basically.
Yeah.
And then the girl explained that while tending to their father's flocks, they heard a loud noise resembling the sound of bells.
Yeah.
And suddenly found themselves in the wolf pit, near Woolpit.
Right.
And that kind of gets into that time slip type of thing, or, this kind of like Narnia-esque like area. And then, you multiply centuries to that story and it gets juicy.
I mean, it does. But here's the thing. If you're in a land of perpetual twilight and, regardless, it could very well have been a St. Martin. And there are plenty of places where you're in perpetual twilight. And really, you only have a month or so out of the year where you actually have the full day and night periods that we experience. So I think that's where the Flemish theory came from.
I know, but that's not really near Suffolk where this was kind of like going through. So that's the weird
if you
context
want
of it all.
to follow the time slip theory, yeah. You're simply going through time and space. And then, here's the other thing. Do we want to get into the multiverse? Parallel dimension, where in another dimension, that particular area was indeed St. Martin. They did indeed speak a different language. And,
they walked through a cave and walked out in a different... They walked out in Suffolk.
Yes.
So.
And then they were like, what is going on? But I mean, if you come from a place where you don't have the sun and the night, you basically just live in this twilight where you never fully have like high noon. I think that in combination with a varied diet could contribute to the skin changing from that green hue to, a hue that is more, I don't want to say natural or normal, but more recognized.
More accepted or what have you.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to take all of that into consideration. And, if they did come from another time or another place, even if they're coming from another place, it would make sense that the one or both of them would have gotten sick because now they're exposed to, germs and microbes and bacteria that they wouldn't have been exposed to.
Yeah.
And it's kind of dumb luck that Agnes, the girl, didn't succumb to it and that she did not only survive but thrived.
Yeah. That's where I think more it's some sort of diet deficiency type of thing. Because I actually just typed into something.
But they did say that it wasn't only just that they had the green skin, but they were clad in garments of a strange color, of unknown materials. And that's according to
Newberg, and he recounted that in his Historia Rerum Anglicarum, which is the history of English affairs from 1220. So, I mean, this made it into a book.
Yeah. No, it's crazy because, like you mentioned in the beginning, like, there's no answer to this. Like, there's no, like, here's the end, period.
Yeah.
They all lived happily ever after. It's just this weird situation that occurred. And it seems viable that it occurred.
Right.
Because of the multiple angles of people telling stories and, you know, it being around. And like I said, there's actually this real girl who like existed. You know, it's not like
who not only existed but got married.
Yeah, like
had a child. Like she had a family. She lived a life. Yeah,
that's what in my opinion makes this story incredible. You know, because other ones they're just, you know, oh, there was a sighting of this, or people were over for like Mothman. There was some short period of time stuff, and then like bam, it's gone. It's over and nobody wants to talk about it anymore. You know, where this is actually like one of these kids actually had like a thriving life to a certain degree.
So one of the theories is that the children may have been poisoned with arsenic and left to die, which is why they were green and which is why the brother did die.
Yeah.
But that doesn't it doesn't explain how, if they were poisoned, how did Agnes survive? Another explanation for the green skin could be chlorosis, which results from malnutrition and may explain why their green skin faded as they adjusted to a better diet.
Yeah. Now, I looked into some medical reasoning behind the green skin and all that, and there was hypochromic anemia, it's called, and that's likely caused by malnutrition. And this is kind of like one of the most cited medical explanations, this hypochromic anemia, and particularly chlorosis, which is a type of iron deficiency anemia that was sometimes referred to historically as the green sickness, they would call it.
Right, yes.
Symptoms would include pale or green tinged skin, fatigue, weakness. If these children had a restricted diet, as the story says, you know, they only ate beans initially, they may have been severely malnourished. And then after eating a normal diet, this green tint reportedly fades, which supports the theory.
Right,
that's like the number one. Then there was the other one, like you were mentioning, the arsenic or heavy metal poisoning and chronic exposure to arsenic found in some groundwater, even soil, can lead to greenish skin, discoloration, and other symptoms like lethargy and stuff like that. They were saying this is less likely given the rapid recovery they experience after changing diet and environment. Then there was sulfur copper exposure. Some speculate environmental exposure, like living near a copper mine, could have caused this greenish hue, though that's very speculative and not widely supported by any kind of medical evidence. And then they kind of chalked up the rest as like these rare metabolic disorders. There's these kind of rare genetic conditions that can cause unusual skin pigmentation or make one susceptible to dietary imbalances. But nothing really matches the story as neatly as the malnutrition-linked anemia that I mentioned in the beginning of it.
Because if it was a genetic condition, it wouldn't have mattered what they were eating. They would have been green.
Yeah, there was that whole rebound
thing.
They
would have been alphaba.
And then you actually think about it, you know, that makes sense why one would do well and the other one didn't, is maybe just the malnourishment. You know, people have different tolerances for things. And, you know, I mean, I have a brother of mine that's very susceptible to just pain. Like everything hits high on the pain frequency for him. Me, no. You know, I'm the exact opposite.
Right.
We couldn't be two polar opposites. Like, you know, he'll jam a finger in like a drawer and it'll be like someone sawed his arm off.
Yeah.
And this huge display and all that. And I'm sure it hurts. You know, I mean, like, I don't think he's doing it on purpose, you know.
No.
But
it's
like,
just his pain receptors are more sensitive.
I could do the same thing and just be like, oh, that sucks. And he'd just look at me like, how the hell are you not screaming your head off right now? And it's like, you know, and I always tell him, you know, just not a fucking wimp, but, you know. But I could see that with the two. And yeah, it makes the story really interesting because you have this girl that like grew up learned English, and
Yeah.
so I think the rational part of someone's mind would say this was like either someone through like a gypsy network or something through there, and just or just people that were like vagabonds, just like traveling around,
Yeah.
and
Nomads.
it just got nomads, and maybe something happened to them, and they were gone. And these two kids are just on their own trying to fend for themselves.
Jesus and Mary lost Joseph.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Mary and Joseph lost Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I'm just saying, maybe something happened to them.
Yeah.
And the kids were just left on their own.
It could very well be. They could have been left to their own devices. They did the best they could.
Yeah.
And if you are traveling
and then they got
through
found.
the woods and the countryside, all you would have available to you to eat is green.
Mm-hmm.
So that would support the malnutrition. There is speculation that they could have been Dutch, and that the twilight they described could have been the leafy darkness of the nearby Thetford forest.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, but that's the boring theory.
Oh, I got a good one.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's why I figured we get the boring medical, realistic, quote unquote, skeptic.
Plausible. We'll get the plausible ones
Let's
out.
just get the plausible right out of the
slip.
way. Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah.
I think that one's the most attractive. Mm-hmm. There are others.
Oh, there are.
Ancient Origins explains, some claim that the children's green skin, strange clothes, and unintelligible language are a sure sign that they came from outer space. Mm-hmm. This theory appears to have been put forward in the 17th century when Robert Burton wrote in The Anatomy of Melancholy, 1621, that the Green Children of Woolpit fell from heaven, though there's actually very little evidence to back up that theory. Mm-hmm. It's certainly true that there's some overlap between the story of the Green Children of Woolpit and modern descriptions of aliens as little green men. I'm going to stop there. That is not the description of aliens. That's the description of aliens in sci-fi books or in movies. Mm-hmm. They're gray. The alien gray with people who supposedly have had encounters. Yeah. They are gray. They are not green.
No, and that actually shows throughout time. Like they've always had these kind of sightings, or occurrences that happen with, aliens or something to that effect. But I think we covered that in an episode a long time ago where there was a line where movies, and it wasn't really movies, it was books and like comic books were, graphic novel type books, were presenting these kind of the grays that everybody knows of. And there was a change like into the story where people started seeing more of that. And I find that insanely interesting to me, because there was more of these kind of green kind of stories and things to that effect. And then the grays started coming in through these books and all that. And then all the sightings leaned more towards grays and things to that.
Or is it that the books changed because there was a sighting, and in the sighting, they saw something gray, and then all of a sudden that became the narrative in the books?
I don't know. I think from a writer's perspective, most of these people, they just write stories that they want to write.
Yeah.
I don't know if a lot of those older ones were brought up from a context of something real. I don't know. That'd be a cool thing to look into, which I'm burrowing into that my head. So one day when I wake up at 1 a.m,
you've got something to do.
I got something to look up, and I'll have an answer for that. But yeah, I remember reading from a lot of sources that, when those stories were kind of coming up, and especially films and things to that regard, when it came over to that, the stories, the witness accounts started shifting towards that as well. And that's something that skeptics kind of catapult, in the realm of the skeptic verse of alien sightings and things like that, there's this kind of line, and that basically you're being programmed to see what you want to see, whether it's intentional or not, the programming, so to speak. Your mind just programs, but it's not to say that you didn't see something. If it's a traumatizing experience, you might not have all the details, because some people freeze and they just blank out. Other people get heightened and they remember everything, down to the smallest detail, which is, interesting in both regards. But maybe that's, when something happens, you're just seeing what you want to see as far as memory.
Yeah,
because I find that interesting because I'll watch this sometimes, like especially with you and your siblings. I see this where you all will account a single event, and then I'll watch all of you argue on like these details, like a color of something or whatever, and it's like, yeah, no, you're probably none of you are right. It's like whatever you guys have done, whatever association,
the memory is historically inaccurate, and that's why eyewitness testimony, if that's all you have, can be so dangerous because you can convince yourself that, especially over time, you can convince yourself of things that didn't happen or never happened.
Yeah, because what it is it's literally how your memory works on a pathological biology perspective. That's like when I meet someone, I kind of go through this process where, I'll ask them, where are they from? And like something personal about them. You need to have those things because that helps you remember. Sometimes it just happens naturally and you absorb that stuff through. But if you're not really having that conversation, like I have these kind of pinpoint things. And what that's doing is it's allowing you to kind of use, in that sense, some factual stuff. But if you find it interesting, and I'll give you an example, like the guys in the men's group, we've got all these kind of funny names for them because they all have Bob. Most of them for
there's
Bob.
15 Bobs.
But we have these things that we've put in there to make it memorable.
Yeah.
So, and then also know how when I talk about someone, who I'm talking about.
Right.
But here's the thing, none of that stuff really kind of applies to them. It's our application to them to form a memory of them. And you got to be careful with that when you're trying to use it in like a witness testimony of something.
Yeah.
Because you will just automatically, being a human being, you're going to apply something there.
Yeah, you're going to insert your bias or whatever
or
into
just
it.
Whatever kind of thing you're inserting there to make it memorable.
Yeah.
And it's never really malicious or anything. It's just your brain doing what
it does.
What it does, and so, yeah, I find that very interesting. And like I said, especially when you get a group of people that were all like witness of the same thing, and they have kind of these different things, and I think also it tells you a lot about the person.
Yes.
Unlike, so why did you pick that?
Yeah, of all the things.
But they'll tell you, no, that's the way it was,
Well, yeah, I mean, that's...
Yeah, it just shows how corruptible.
Like, you can have 50 people at a party. You can talk to 5 different people and all at the same party, and they're all going to have a different version of what happened at said party.
Yeah, because you also have their viewpoint of what was going through, but it just shows how corruptible you can be.
Yes.
Yes. It really is. It doesn't matter what the intentions are.
That's why there's such a problem with repressed memories.
Yeah. Yeah. The repressed memories, like I never bought that when they were doing it. I was like, this is going to go nowhere fast.
Yeah.
And it's going to ruin a lot of people because people have a hard time, like I said, I mean, you're corruptible just in your kind of conscious state, let alone unconscious, because I just look at my dreams, the shit I dream about.
Yeah.
And that's my mind at work, so to speak,
right.
and
that's supposed to be your mind working through shit. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
What does this mean?
Yeah. And it's nothing like I've had dreams that like they represent a version of something in theory, but like there's nothing associative of it at all in real life. Like I had those dreams for a while when I was working like tech support and working a lot of hours, and I was by myself and I was getting really buried and burned out. And like, I was having those dreams. I would tell you those nightmares of like all these people standing around and their heads would roll off.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to grab their heads.
You had that when we first got together.
Yeah. And put it back on their bodies, you know, and I'd have this dream every single night and I'd never win. Like I'd be surrounded by all these heads and I'd have them like in my arms and all that. I never saw a movie that was reflective of that. I wasn't around an event that was like that. That was just my mind processing stress, basically, you know, and to think that, oh yeah, you're going to put somebody under hypnosis and that region of someone's brain is going to give you a good result of something. It's like, what are you, nuts? You know, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And to think that they tried, you know, there's people that went to prison and people that probably had the death penalty based on that kind of stuff.
To
you know,
a podcast
crazy
about a furniture store murder that happened. It was somewhere in the South.
That sounds juicy already.
It is. It was like a it was like a family run. It actually reminded me of Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Okay.
With the Becky, you know how her dad had the furniture store? It reminded me of that.
Okay.
Because it was like the dad owned it. The wife worked there. The kids worked there.
Yeah.
No,
I'm just kidding.
But it like that was the reference. That's what stuck for me.
Sure.
I was like, oh my gosh, this is Becky Ann Lehman's story.
This is the Lehmans.
Yeah. And come to find out, they find these people murdered. This guy was tried, I don't even know how many times. It was like 5 or 6 times. He was found guilty every time, and then every time the verdict got overturned on appeal because there wasn't evidence that put this guy there. And he was serving a life sentence because 3 or 4 people died in that furniture store. And the DA consistently, like, there were issues with the evidence. There was issues with the eyewitness testimony. There were issues with the DA himself because he was found to be very racist in how he chose his juries. And the supposed killer happened to be a man of color. And there was evidence, like there were multiple people who could vouch for him saying that he was nowhere near that furniture store. And there's no way he could have done it. And
because his car didn't have Positrack.
He didn't even have a car. Dude had like a bicycle.
I'm just going Cousin Vinny.
I know what you were doing, but the whole point was they finally, again, you know, the verdict was overturned, but I believe it was the Innocence Project helped him. And the podcast actually helped because they talked to these other people who are like, yeah, no, I saw so-and-so there. Or so-and-so was going that way. Yeah. I saw this dude on the complete other side of town. Like, he was nowhere near it. Like, miles away. And they're like, I don't understand how he could have...
Yeah,
how he ever could have been found guilty. Or how they ever came to him as the person that did it. Because there was literally no evidence that put him there. But there was evidence that did put another person there. And nope, no, it's this guy. And it's like, all right. But now you've got the bias of the DA because he's like, no, this is the evidence we have. And you've got the cops who are, they're both doubling down. They're like, no. And, you know, here it gets overturned again. And they're like, so you're going to try him again? For the same thing. He keeps getting tried over and over for the same thing. And I believe the DA finally is no longer the DA. And I don't know if the new DA...
So did they do hypnosis to put him away, or are you just talking a total different topic here? Yeah.
No, but I'm talking about the biases and how
Well, yeah, it's been around forever.
There were people who swore he was there. Same number of people swore he wasn't there.
Yeah.
And the DA and the cops are convinced, yeah, no, he was the one there, as well as the family members.
This is a problem you're going to have with like law and order to a certain extent. And this is something that's big in like small towns. And everybody says, well, you know, the racist and all that. And I agree. There is that component there. I'm not going to shortchange it at all. But there's also this fear from a law and order perspective where if you can't solve a crime,
right,
that creates a lot of problems.
Yeah.
A lot of problems. And I'm not saying it's right that law and order would just say, well, this is neat and tidy.
Right.
It's done. I'm not saying that's right. The thing is you're just staring at a lot of wrongs.
Right.
You know, a lot of wrongs occurring and a lot of just strange things that are going to occur. And of course, like I can be abstract about that and fine, but if I was in that situation, I'd be pissed. And, you know, I mean, and I get the resentment that people have with that. But yeah, like I said, the hypnosis thing part with me, like that whole deal just drives me crazy. The eyewitness stuff, that's tough as well. I think that's where we're an exceptional part of time now where there's cameras.
Literally
around.
Everywhere.
You know, there's cameras all over the place. I mean, like you go to like, say, a city or, you know, especially like out in like England and Britain out through there, they got cameras fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, same thing with
there's
like
traffic
China.
cameras. There's cameras on buildings. There's cameras on doors.
Everywhere,
yeah.
You know, I mean, like China's really gone aggressive with it. And I think I mentioned it before, but like they did this kind of test to see if someone could like evade the system.
Right.
And they turn them loose right in the middle of Shanghai, which is like the most population dense place in the world. And they found them, like they gave them no ID. They gave them nothing.
Right.
And they just said, you know, we're going to drop you off in here. We're not going to tell the surveillance team
right,
like where you are and all that. And they just need to find you, you know, and they found them in like 5 minutes. It's like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
That was it. And they found them like
facial recognition.
It was just like everywhere. Like they they just swarmed right onto them. And that has changed the dynamic a great deal in that sense. You know, I mean, I think that's the tough part that people don't understand, especially now. Like there's bad cops out there. I'm not going to say there's not. You know, there's bad people, there's bad judges, there's bad attorneys, you know.
Right.
But
there's bad people.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying there's bad people in the system, but it's a lot different than it was, let's just even say 50 years ago. You know, because like I said, every cop, they've got a cam on them.
Yeah, there's body cams, there's dash cams.
There's dash cams.
And not to mention, every single person has
a Ring doorbell or something of that
or
kind.
Or a cell phone on them.
No, but I'm just saying, like, even like on the road. So like if something happens on the street in like, say, a suburban area, you've got like 6-7 doorbell cams, you know, Ring doorbells that are going to capture that moment, you know? So, and that's the thing that people don't get either. It's like when people flee a scene, like you can literally go through those Ring doorbells and, you know, through these cameras that are up at streetlights and all that. It's hard. It's real hard, but it also makes law enforcement more on the honest side, you know, and, you know, it's a different time, man. Totally
it is a different time.
And that's where I get a little frustrated when I hear people say stuff that like would normally happen 50 years ago or more happening now. And it's like, that's not how it works.
Right.
You know, and even when like cops come to apprehend somebody, like usually, all right, they know who you are. They know your face. They've got eyewitness accounts that corroborate with the video and things like that. You know, it's you know, and that's why a lot of them run. The ones that run. I've always said that, you know, if you're running, you're in trouble. It just shows guilt to me. I understand that cops can be bad and you're going to run from that, but I just don't see where running from that
is going to help your situation.
It's going to help your situation versus, say, dealing with a bad officer or something like that. You know, again, call me naive.
So
whatever,
back to the Green Children.
Yeah.
There are those who say they never existed.
Yeah.
And William of Newburgh, who wrote about them, he chronicled their story, and that doesn't matter to him because in his account of the children, he wrote, quote, "Let everyone say as he pleases and reason on such matters according to his abilities. I feel no regret at having recorded an event so prodigious and miraculous."
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it would. What are the odds? What are the odds that you would stumble across these children that look like they're out of time and place,
Yeah.
don't speak the language, don't understand your food,
Yeah.
and then they slowly start to adapt.
Or recover.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
recover, and then go on to, at least Agnes apparently lived a full life.
Yeah.
So do you think they existed?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I've always had this common stance. I've said it multiple times on pretty much any kind of different episode we have. I try not to question somebody's like witness testimony on these types of things because, I mean, if you say you saw it, you saw it.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I try to have people take me seriously, at least with like my spiritual encounter. You know? You don't have to believe it or whatever, but like I would hope you just believe me.
That you had something.
That something
happened.
That something happened. You know?
Yeah.
Why would you deny that?
Yeah.
You know? Why would you deny that for me? You know? I'm not hurting anybody with it. You know?
No.
It's the same thing with this. You know? It's like cryptids and all that stuff. I mean, I have my, you know, I have my my opinions with it, and you know, I think, like from a cryptid standpoint, I think they do exist. I just don't think. I don't think all the sightings might be real, or you know, not sightings, but like occurrences. You know, like sounds. Your brother and I were talking, you know, and like he mentioned it. He's like, "Oh, you know," because he listens to the podcast, and he's like, "Yeah, I agree," because he spent a lot of time in the woods, like myself. You know, it's like there's just shit you hear out there.
Yeah, if all you have is
sound,
an audible
yeah,
experience, that literally could be anything.
It literally can, you know, and I mean, and I don't care how long you've been out in the woods,
right?
You are going to hear something that you just can't identify. And here's the other thing. You're also going to hear something that sounds very big and it's not.
Right.
Especially if you're in the fall,
right,
where there's
with
the dry leaves and stuff like that, and you're in that type of climate, you know. Like
the crisp air, the crackling of the branches.
Up in the Adirondacks, if there's like in the fall, I disregard a lot of noise as something threatening because it just, everything sounds big.
Yeah.
Everything does. Like a little chipmunk or a squirrel that's like scurrying around. It sounds large.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's kind of nature's defense mechanism for critters.
Yeah.
You know, to kind of hear things from all over, you know, and it helps the threats, you know. And then, of course, the winter, all that disappears because now it's gone from the polar opposite, you know, of you've gone from super noisy to now like zero noise.
Right.
Everything's whisper quiet. And, you know, it's, so going back to witness testimonies and do I believe this happened? I believe it happened. And I think my interpretation of this is that these were two malnourished kids that were from, they had some, maybe like a traveling family and they got separated somehow.
Yep.
And they were on their own and they had a malnourished deficiency of some kind.
Yep.
I think the boy was just close to dying and couldn't make it.
Right.
You know, the girl was in a better state. And then as they started bringing them in and feeding them and giving them proper nutrition, I think the whole baptism thing is just a coincidence that, you know, he got baptized and then dies shortly after.
But it also would make sense. If he was sick, they would have had them baptized.
They would have
because they would have wanted him.
Yeah. So if the boy just was struggling, they'd be like, look, you know, let's just, you know, let Jesus claim him.
Right.
And, you know, give this kid a shot.
Save his soul.
Give a kid a shot at redemption. That's very Christian-like, you know.
Yes.
And then, yeah, the girl, I think, is the exceptional part of the story because, like I said, she learned the language.
Yep.
She got assimilated.
She had a name. She had a husband.
She assimilated into the culture and, prospered.
I think the fact that they have her name, they have her husband's name, and they know that she had a child, I think that...
Yeah.
I
That's
don't...
plausible.
Yeah. I don't think that it was a made-up story.
No, and then, here's the problem. Like, I'm always like, whatever sounds kind of reasonable is usually the deal.
Yeah.
Jumping to these leaps now, you're just going into things that you can't prove.
The sexy answer is time slip.
Yeah.
But like you said, the logical one is that they were just simply immigrant children. That's why they spoke a different language, and that's probably why they were dressed differently as well.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you got to understand, it's like 1150.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's 1150. It's not even 1200.
No.
And
no.
I mean, to put it into context, like you're about 1,000 years away from Christ occurring. Yeah. I mean, it's not far. So, and it's a total different area, total different landscape. Yeah, I buy. I buy that every day of the week. Even when I was watching this and, watching the videos and reading and looking at all of it. I mean, the other stuff is juicy.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I love talking about it and I think it's cool. But the whole alien thing, I just don't buy it.
No.
The time slip thing. Yeah, I don't know where I sit on that. Because there's different days of the week where, I look at it and
you're in, and then there are days when you're like, that's
I'm not even going to say I'm
bullshit.
in. I just look and I'm like, I could see maybe where it's plausible. And I've dove deep into that. Like, I've gone into the physics of it and all that. Like, I've tried to look at the theories of it and, of the multiverse kind of scenario and theory. And I think that's what frustrates me with science now is somewhere along the line, like, theory became fact.
Yeah.
And it was during our lifetime.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to broadcast exactly how old we are, even though
I'd be so bold
before,
as to say within the last decade or so.
I'd say within the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line in the last 20 years, there was just a line that was crossed in science where theory started to become published as fact.
Right.
I think you corner a scientist and you say, oh, is this fact? No, it's a theory. But the juicy front end of the publicizing and the news and the gossip columns of all of it and the writers of all that to bring it out, they're putting it as like a fact. And I just see it when I talk to people. There's people that just look and they're like, well, yeah, no, they proved a multiverse existed. I was like, no, they haven't.
No.
They haven't done any of the such of that.
Mm-mm.
And there's people that are walking around that believe that. I mean,
Yes.
there's people that believe
There's
the world
also
is flat.
exactly.
But
yes.
so there's gullible people all over the place that are going to believe things and want to believe it, and that's a whole different philosophical discussion on why they have to believe these types of things. I think there's a deficit in their belief structure somewhere to keep that conversation light. But because I think if you don't have anything in your mind to fill that void, you're going to just put something in there because you need it.
Right.
You're biologically built that way. But yeah, I think with this, it was just two kids that were lost.
Yep.
That broke away from some pact or something happened to their parents or the group of people they were with. And, maybe they were just like stuffed off in the woods. It could have been.
They were Hansel and Gretel. Just left in the woods.
Yeah. No, and I think they tried to exist as long as they could. And fortunately, someone found them.
Yep.
Came upon them. And
took them in.
And tried to get them back up to ship shape, and they did with one, but the other one didn't make it. But for as long as that legend goes, and that's what amazes me is like, there's so many of these. This is where I love this podcast because like there's so many of these stories that exist that are, 1,000 years old, or, even older, and they still live on. which to me is amazing. I mean, if you really think about it in the context, like you look at everything in your life and so much of it's going to be forgotten. You know, I really like was thinking about this like a year ago or so, a couple years ago, where like my whole existence is going to be forgotten.
Yeah.
Because I don't have any children. You know, I'm the last of male of my family name as far as my immediate family. When I pass, it's all done.
Yep.
You know, especially like my mom passed and I had all those photos. I'm like, I have no one to give these to.
Right.
You know, so I'm just going to erase, you know,
Yeah.
and no one's going to know. And that's the majority of people.
Right.
I know everybody wants to feel they're important.
Right.
And you are today.
Yes.
Today, you're very important. You're
Yes.
important to a child or, you know, a
You're
spouse
important
or
to your family,
friend,
your loved
but-
ones.
well, no, even like your friends and,
Yeah.
you know, your coworkers and things like that. You're important. You know, I mean, like if you don't show up to work, people are going to be like, fuck, I got to do Jen's work.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, but in the grand scheme of things, you know, in our existence right now, of everyone that's alive right now, I would say in 2,000 years, God willing, everything stays and there's a civilization and everything. Let's just say it's just like before. There's only going to be 100 memorable people,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
at best.
And you know what? They aren't going to be influencers from
No,
the internet.
They might be. You know, I'm saying like you don't know. And the reason why I say you don't know is because there's these two kids
Right.
that were green that have made it all this time, this far,
Right.
to a point where there's two people, a husband and wife, in central New York that are talking about it on their horror podcast. To me, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I find that absolutely amazing, you know, and, but yeah, it's amazing what gets carried and what gets left behind, you know, because I imagine during that time period, there was someone that probably held a whole village together and they were the most needed person there and beloved.
Right.
And everyone loved them. And when they died, the village probably went to waste.
Mourned
and
them, yeah.
all, you know, and all that. And you'll never know who that person is.
Right.
But you remember who these two green kids are.
Well, I mean,
you
they
know.
were green.
Well, yeah.
At the end of the day, they were green.
Yeah, it's not normal, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's that is funny. But
I mean,
one thing I wanted to bring up that's
Okay.
Outside of this topic here.
so not green.
No.
Okay.
So I always forget the name of the doc, and I should know it because I did this kind of stuff for a while. But the Sosa who was doing
Rue Powell?
Rue Powell.
Yeah.
What's the name of that documentary? And is it on Max?
It's Undercover Underage.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have seen it.
Yes, it is on Max.
But if you have Max and you haven't seen it, I strongly urge you to watch it.
If you are a parent,
especially if you're a mother
yes.
with a daughter,
Yes.
you need to watch it.
Yes.
I really don't care what your opinion is on X or Y. That's
No.
not the point.
The point
need
is you need to see it.
to see it to believe it.
Yes.
You need to understand the significance of it,
Yes.
and the impact and the risk that it brings
Yes.
to your family's life.
Yes.
And while you're watching it, you need to understand that that's just one city that they're dealing with
Right.
in the country.
Yeah.
So to think that it only happens there is naive. If you know people, if you've seen it and you know people that haven't seen it, urge it to them.
Yeah.
These young girls today are living a life that no one else has been exposed to.
No. When we introduced the internet into our homes,
Mhm.
we lost our privacy. And there is no safe space online.
No.
There is no safe space for your children. Wherever your children are going online, the predators are there as well.
Yeah.
And that's why you need to see Undercover Underage, because as soon as a profile goes live,
Mhm.
those girls are being contacted instantly.
Yeah.
instantly. And one of the after they confirm the age of the girl and they share their quote unquote name that they're using, the very next thing that happens is an explicit picture or an explicit conversation with the child.
Yeah, but even before all that, the grooming takes place immediately.
It does. 8 minutes.
Yeah, that's, she mentioned that stat there, and it's actually very realistic.
Yes.
First off, I think RuPaul's just doing the Lord's work.
Yes.
I just, we need more of her.
We do.
I'm actually getting more back into thinking of, I need to get back. I had to take a break because it's that bad.
It is.
It affects you. It really kind of, and like, I think she took a break for a while.
Affected me.
I was reaching out to her, and I get where you need to take a break because it's terrible.
Well, she's also a mother to 3 daughters.
Well, yeah, but I mean, at this point, like, if you're just a human being that has some shred of like moral ethics to yourself, this stuff affects you because, like I said, to just bring it back to the beginning of what I was saying, these young girls that are being raised up today, no one can relate to what they're going through.
No.
This is something new.
Yes.
It's something terrible.
Yes.
Basically, what I'm thinking of doing is we'll do a YouTube video episode where I'll get, when I get the new desk set up.
Yes.
I want to get to where you and I are doing a live, and I'm going to go into these chat groups just to show people how quick it happens.
Yeah.
Because I think parents today, they're so disconnected from it, they don't understand it. They just don't understand even why, why would my kid go and chat with people? And it's like, well, don't get into the why. They're doing it.
Yeah.
Just skip the why.
Just know that it's happening.
Skip the why. Know that they're doing it. And they're talking. It doesn't matter who they're talking to. It doesn't matter if they're with their friends or whatever. These people are in these environments because that's where the kids are.
Yeah.
This is something that I've been passionate about for years. And I know there was these 2 events in my life that occurred where it just got me into this direction. And basically the grooming is so quick. It's so fast. And that 8 minutes that Rue's talking about, it is that quick.
It's not days.
It's not days.
Weeks,
it's not weeks.
Months. It's minutes.
It is minutes. The grooming starts.
Yes.
And there'll be a point where you could lose your kid.
Yes.
And I'm not saying like you lose them in your house, not yet, but just you've lost that connection with them. You've lost that relationship with them. This monster has seeded its hooks. And I'm sorry, it's demonic activity. I don't care. I don't care what the hell your religious stance is or whatever. I don't care if you believe in spiritualism or whatever. It's demonic activity. These people are sick. They are sick to the core.
Yes.
And some of them can't be fixed.
One of them was contacting a 12-year-old girl's profile, and he was in prison for the exact same thing.
And this is why I want mothers to watch
this show.
Because it's going to change your whole view on prisoners in prison. Why does a prisoner have to have a fucking cell phone?
Yes.
Even though it's contraband and all that stuff, they need to be reprimanded because these are weapons now.
Yes.
That's what people have to understand.
Yes.
And so what I want to do is I want to hop on Omegle. I want to hop on Roblox. I want to hop on all these places that their kids are on.
Yep.
And I want to throw this video up. And I've seen some do it and they just kind of dabble in it. I want to do an hour of just nothing but this and have like 30 profiles lined up. Do all that as prep work, and then just go through it 30 times just to show you how quick it happens. And then even more, when you have 30 profiles up in a certain area, you're going to see the same people hitting the same profiles.
Yeah.
And they're just casting a net over all the stuff.
Whoever they're going to catch.
And they're working each of them.
Yep.
That's why I got to do the new desk because I got to have all the monitors up and all that stuff. But yeah, the name of the doc again?
Undercover Underage.
Yes. By any means necessary, even if you have to purchase it, just purchase it, and
It's
because
worth it.
it's worth it. And Rue, who's doing the work for it, you know, and who's hurting, and it's not just Rue. She's behind this incredible team of people.
In the first season, it was Rue. It was Rue doing all of it.
Mhm.
In the second season, she has three women that are doing profiles, essentially doing what she was doing in the first season.
Yeah.
But anytime there is a meet and greet, Rue is the one that goes out because she's not going to.
She doesn't want to put her girls at risk, you know, and I don't, you know, and the off chance that say someone from that team or her's listening, please reach out, because I want to contact her at some point. I want to learn how they're doing it. I have my technical things coming from a cybersecurity background.
Right, yeah.
And I was showing you, I was like, God,
Yeah.
it's so frustrating to watch, because
Yeah.
I'm watching 8 of them struggle to find this. It's like there's software for that. You know, it's just like, you know,
Yeah.
but I think that's where people got to start pulling together. And I think ultimately what has to happen is there needs to be a federal unit that goes after these. It needs to be a branch of the
There
FBI.
needs to be a task force,
Because the
something.
local police are too overwhelmed with everything else, being shorthanded, short-staffed, short-funded,
Yeah.
and trying to just do the existing crime that's here. And then you bring something as complex as this,
Yes.
because it's all this digital evidence, and
Yep.
you got to do all this stuff. You know, these teams are necessary, I think, you know, to have people that are independent do this, but it needs to go to a task force
Yes.
that handles this. And we need this because it's not going anywhere.
No, it's not
You
going to
can't
go
wish
away.
you can't wish that it's going to go away. It's happening.
Yes.
They're going after
It's
your
going to
kids.
continue to happen.
There was a guy in one of the episodes there that was so glad that it happened. Not that it physically happened, but I was glad that it happened for someone who views this and doesn't understand. The guy was going to hook up with this 12 to 13-year-old girl's mother so she could get to her.
Yeah, so he
She
could
was
have
going to use
access
the
to
mother
her. Yeah.
as an access to her. So he
Yes.
wanted to know who the mother was.
Yep.
And told this little girl this.
Yeah.
So how in the hell does a 12 to 13-year-old girl even process that?
Right.
How do they handle that?
Yeah.
They can't.
Yeah.
They can't handle that emotionally. It's just too messed up and way outside
Mm-hmm.
of left field for them. And yeah, it's a topic we're going to bring up more and more this year. And like I said, I want to do a nice like hour-long YouTube
Mm-hmm.
stream, and you know, and just have it on there of this, just show it over and over and over again. Get like 30 accounts stacked up,
Yep.
do the prep work,
Yep.
and then just do a live to go through them, and we'll go through all these spots that your kids are hanging out.
Yeah.
All these little chat areas
Yep.
for video games or just chat places,
Mhm.
social media, all of these places. It's on Instagram.
It's
On
everywhere.
X. It's on Snapchat. It's on Omegle. It's Roblox. It's Fortnite. It's
Yeah.
everywhere. Everywhere. It just and then the worst part is where these people work. They work in daycares. They work for child protective services. They
Mhm.
work in all these places. I sent evidence to a person with a case. He was an offender from a different state, so they didn't get to see that. And it was in processing. He was on the run, and he was working as a low-level person in a like a kid's like a juvie type
Yeah, detention center.
detention center or something like that, you know, where they're just getting these broken kids,
Yeah.
you know, and it's sick, and people got to stop burying their head in the sands. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. Stop chasing this bullshit that the news and current political specter's trying to draw you to. This is more important.
Yeah.
It is.
It is.
Just wake up, please.
Yes.
It aggravates me,
Mhm.
you know, and this is something that everyone could fall together with. We would be unified as one.
Yeah.
Over this.
We can all agree that this is an issue.
You know, so stop crying that your kids ain't going to have Social Security. Stop crying that they're not going to have this and they're not going to have that. They're not going to have a functioning life.
Yeah.
If this crap keeps up,
Mhm.
because it's just it's rampant, and they feel protected because they're protected through an anonymity. You know, anonymity, but also they know that no one cares.
No.
I'm going to say it for what it is. They just they know that parents aren't looking into this stuff and they're not doing anything about it. And yeah, I think the single worst person for a child under the age of 13 is unfettered access to the internet and unfettered access to social media networks.
Yep.
I think it's literally the worst thing you could do for your kid. And, with that being said, that closes March.
It do.
So happy birthday month, babe.
Hey, thanks.
It was a pleasure going through this with you.
I rather enjoyed it.
My favorite episode was by far the Doomsday Cat Cult.
I know.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then the worst part is like, just the name's crazy. Then you get into it and you're like, yeah, anybody who's loony would get into this. But what was funny getting into it is like, okay, so where do the cats come in? Because like it didn't start out like that.
No.
And it kept going. And you're like, well, where do the cats? And then the cats come and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And boy, they have a presence. They arrive.
Well, and I think they're still going, right?
Yeah. It's dogs and cats now.
Yeah, but I think they're real like underground.
Yeah, they are.
Which means
in 2024, they moved from Tennessee to Kentucky.
Yeah.
And then they opened essentially an animal rescue, primarily dogs and cats.
Yeah.
But
I've said it the whole time. If you've got 20 people, if you've got 20 devoted people.
Yeah, and she does.
You've got a functioning cult.
Yep.
You can work wonders. So with March closing out, now we get to, it's one of my favorite times of year.
Yes.
I don't know. I can't speak for the listeners, but
right.
But our numbers appear to jump in this month.
Okay.
Year after year. And we brought this in, I'd say 3 years ago, where we had April be, we do Holy Month, basically. Mm-hmm. And we do these kind of holy related episodes and topics. So what do we have next week?
The Cristero War.
Yeah. Yep. So this was early 1900s in Mexico.
The Mexico.
Yeah. So, this is something that I learned of, I want to say, about a year ago. Okay. First time I heard it.
Well, this, in an odd turn of events, I didn't know anything about it. So now...
So we switched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now it's my turn.
No, it's to
learn some stuff.
It's a pretty incredible event in history. Mm-hmm. And I think it's worth talking about. It's horrific, for starters.
Of course. And, this is the Horror, by the way.
Yeah, but it's also it's relevant.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Right.
So with that being said, rule number 1.
No Ouija boards.
Number 2.
No dolls.
Yeah. Number 3.
No capes.
No. Cloaks are good. But
it's not a cape.
Capes no.
No.
Rule number 4.
No blood rituals.
No.
Mm-mm.
That doesn't work.
Right.
Number 5.
No cults, satanic or otherwise.
Yes.
You can have a cat. You don't have to have 40.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't have to sleep with your leader to make things good.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
No.
Number 6.
No apathy. You need to act to help enact a positive change in this world.
Yeah.
Start local. Do nice things.
Just do
Say
nice
please
things.
and thank you.
Yeah. Smile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As Dalton says, be nice.
Be nice. Yeah. Number 6.
Don't engage with black identities.
Yeah. However, side note.
Yeah.
You might want to interact with a green child.
Yes.
They might need your help.
They might.
Start with green beans. Next rule.
Just listen.
Yeah. Yep. And what do we got after that one?
No pedophiles.
No. Please. Let's just work on that.
Yeah.
One thing. I'm going to go Curly from Curly's Gold.
Yeah.
One thing.
One thing.
And?
If you have something to do, do it.
Yep. If you got something to do this week,
do it.
Just do it.
So, do it.
That being said, we hope you enjoyed Jen's birthday month. And we look forward to crossing over to Holy Month.
We do.
And with that being said, we hope you have an incredible day, a lovely week.
And make good choices.
Take care.